got swamped in the hall.
Yeah, that's why I didn't get up.
Yeah.
I knew if I got up, I'd never get back in here.
Never get back in.
But I need to stretch. Do we have enough to stay? Yeah, we're ready.
Last session I did for this, my understanding is that a straw poll is an informal vote, and then it's not a roll call vote. It's
Right.
just, so it doesn't get recorded. I'm not calling names.
I was going to say, ask him. He's the one.
I was looking over your shoulder.
Okay.
Not that I don't care about your opinion.
His matters.
Yeah, well.
Nothing's efficient here anymore.
Fair enough.
Why does this do this? It's going to lock me out. But
You need the agenda?
it'll be a second and then I'll be ready. Okay, I'll call to order the Special Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, April 15th, 2024. First item on our agenda is roll call.
Raza? Here. Lancy? Beck? Here. Pieper?
Here.
Chanzit? Wolf?
Here.
Solfa?
Here.
Barron?
Here.
Lehman? Ayazi?
Here.
Malay?
Here.
Ewer? Oh, okay. Cerrone? Vogelsinger?
Here.
I didn't even count.
You get an answer.
Lancy's returned. 1, 2, 3, 4.
And
5, 6,
Chanzit.
Chanzit's in the hallway.
9.
Oh, he's still out there?
Yep.
We have 10 in the room.
Okay, so we have 10. We can conduct business. Okay, item 2 is reminder to speak directly into the microphone if you come up to use the microphone. Item 3 is items to be removed, added, or changed. Nothing? We're good? Okay. Number 4 is matters from the public for items not on the agenda. Anybody here for anything not on the agenda? Okay. And we move right on to item 5, discussion on the 2024 City of Batavia surveillance system upgrades.
Hello, everyone. So you should have all received the project charter that explains what we're hoping to do here with some of these surveillance system upgrades. I'll just briefly start off. Steve Allen, our electric superintendent, was unable to make it tonight, but he has some planned surveillance and security measures at the northeast side substation that he'd like to be making. That's included in here. It was included in the budget for $100,000. Includes things like access control, surveillance, some monitoring equipment as well. It's a piece of critical infrastructure, and we've seen across the country that substations have been attacked, and it can have pretty devastating consequences. So this is another thing to bolster that critical infrastructure surveillance. Additionally, there's some planned surveillance at the fire departments. At this moment, I don't believe they have any exterior surveillance. Again, as a facility that has a public safety role, having some eyes on the exterior of the building is something that we included in the budget and something that we believe is important as well. But the main purpose of tonight's discussion specifically is around what we're calling the downtown surveillance portion of the project. That is a level of public surveillance in areas that tie to large gatherings, places like where we hold Windmill City Festival, Houston Street, Peg Bond Center, some city-owned parking lots where we've had property crime and other issues in the past. And so from a technical standpoint, we laid out in here some of the paths we may see ourselves going down. There's just some technological challenges with this project. And so really we expect from here, depending on council's direction, to really learn more about what those options are and what they look like, what they may cost, and ultimately which one may best meet our objectives as a city to adequately protect the public. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but also I just wanted to give this as an opportunity for council to share any feedback or concerns, but also Sean can talk more about our policies surrounding surveillance, how they intend to use it. and some of the conversations we've been having with stakeholders. So I guess I'll give Sean a minute to kind of talk about that, and then we can answer any questions and have a discussion about it.
Hello, good evening again. I just have several bullet point items to talk about that will hopefully make you feel more comfortable about what the scope of this project looks like and really kind of what the objective is and what we're trying to accomplish here. So some of which I'll reiterate some stuff that Max had already said, but again, the focus on this is to be able to deploy resources in specific targeted areas, critical infrastructure being one, which Max kind of touched on. Areas where we have large gatherings of people, and then those core city service areas like parking lots, bridge deck, other areas where we have city art that's been vandalized in the past. And again, the objective is securing these sites, being able to promote public safety, but people would be aware that these systems are in place. So this is not covert camera operations or anything of that matter. And I believe that there is a deterrent aspect to this, yes. I think, will it deter all crime? Absolutely not. I think this will probably be more of a reactive tool for the police department to be able to use to go back to see, times, dates, maybe numbers of persons involved in whatever the incident was, descriptions, identifications of vehicles. How did people come and go from the area? So those types of things that we can use from an evidentiary standpoint to be able to identify perpetrators in some of these crimes that we've experienced. So again, to reiterate, this is not a blanketing of surveillance cameras around the city. That is not the goal. These cameras we're not going to be monitoring these live. That's not the purpose of these cameras as well. That's not to say that we may not have a special event, maybe where we have some specific threats that are made where we might then at that point have somebody monitoring live the cameras. But that's not the goal. That's not the intention behind this. And as I'll briefly explain in a minute, there's a policy behind this that will put controls in place to allow for supervision and monitoring of the systems. One of the things I'll also mention is that, and this is in the project charter, if you took a look at it, we're trying to identify the concerns that citizens have out there. So we've had some opportunities to speak with, for example, the Batavia Community Diversity Initiative. We've given them a copy of the charter. They've also just recently got a copy of the maps that were, areas where we'd be looking to put the surveillance equipment, as well as we've had the opportunity to sit down and have conversations with them, started to get that feedback from them on their concerns from the standpoint of civil liberties and privacy. We're planning on continuing those conversations with them. I think it's important to talk to the people in the community who may have fears or perceived fears of living in a surveillance state. And again, I think that those concerns can be addressed. We can open up these conversations, be transparent about what we're trying to do, and then have good, solid policy in place backing, what we're trying to accomplish with this. Other thing I'll mention is the police department does not use facial recognition technology. We never have. We still don't use it and are not planning on using it. There's, issues that are documented with that. Some of this software does have the ability to track people. Like if you specifically identify somebody who may be committed a crime, it can track them through, a crowded audience. But as far as using it to say, to match up a database full of other facial, figures, that's not what we're looking to do with this system. So we do have a draft policy, which I should have gotten to you guys. I'll send that out to you tomorrow. But basically that addresses the operational guidelines of what we're looking to do, the purpose, the scope, and the camera markings. So where these cameras would go, there would be signage that would clearly state that there's surveillance that is actively occurring. Inside also the policy talks about prohibited activity, the controls and audits that are in place as far as being able to go back, who used the system, when did they access it, did they have the permission to access it? So again, stringent controls in place to be able to, keep an eye on who's using the system. And then obviously training would be a big component of it as well. So I had come up with some examples of some of which are recent, where I think that having surveillance would have been beneficial for the police department to be able to go back and more rapidly solve cases. Most recently on our west side of town, particularly on our west side of town, we experienced a significant number of car burglaries, unlocked vehicles. We were working with some of our neighboring communities, one of which has video surveillance in certain locations in their town. They were able to identify a stolen car, stolen out of Batavia. We worked with them on the case and were able to also, the other thing I'll mention, which I think is great technology, a discussion for another day, is automated license plate reader technology. So through ALPR data, through city surveillance, we were able to work with this other municipality, help us identify these people, and then we have since made an arrest to put this person currently in custody. So we had a case within the past 2 weeks over on the 0 to 99 block, 0 to 99 block of East Wilson Street, back behind like the Comedy Vault area. We responded there for a call of shots fired. We get there, sure enough, there's shell casings on the ground, and the people are gone. We have some witnesses that give us some basic information, but again, there's city public parking back in that area. If we're able to have surveillance in that area, we're able to rapidly figure out how many people are we dealing with, descriptions of vehicles, put an ALPR system on there, and we probably, may have these people in custody right now. So again, some examples of recent cases. And then we have ongoing vandalism cases that occur, cyclically, mostly in the downtown area, public parking areas. We've had artwork damaged on the bridge in past years where, having surveillance in those areas may have been helpful for us to be able to identify all of the stuff that I mentioned earlier. And although rare, we've had occasions in the past where people have reported assaults or criminal sexual assaults along the bicycle path. I think that with some of the areas where we'd be looking at putting surveillance footage, it would give us that opportunity to go back, take a look to see, who, may have been coming or going during a specific time frame. So those are just some examples of how I feel like there would be good value in, again, targeting specific areas for city surveillance system. So I'll open it up for questions if you have any questions for me or for Max.
I do.
Yes, sir.
A couple things, Chief. I didn't, correct me if I'm wrong, I didn't see anything in the documentation that Max sent that said how long you keep video records data for.
Yep, so that's a great question. And I think right now we're currently keeping internal surveillance for around 30 days. But one of the interesting topics that came up was records retention when we were talking with the folks from the Community Diversity Initiative. And, they had talked about and made some good points on, do you need to be keeping stuff for 30, 45, 60 days, or, is a shorter time frame, is that more reasonable? So I would say 30 at the most, but probably 2 weeks, at the least. Generally speaking, we're talking about incidents that occur. We get them reported to us, and then we're able to, get into the surveillance system to start doing our investigative work. So I don't think we need something that has a very long retention period.
And then to build on that a bit, I'm all for video being set up on critical areas such as this. And I know you've stated that the intent is not to put this everywhere, and the intent is not to do facial recognition and all that stuff, but intent and reality in the span of 10 years are two very different things. So personally, this doesn't bother me, but 10 years down the road, if we start putting cameras on every single thoroughfare and we're doing facial recognition, and then I really have cause for concern and pause. So I don't know if we can put up guardrails in any way to try to prevent that in the future as a council, or if anybody wants to or not, or if it's just me. But this, as it is, all for it. But guardrails for the future, I'd be all for as well. Just my opinion.
Alderman Pieper?
Could we, regularly, maybe once a year, once every 6 months, publish what records were accessed, assuming they're not under a pending investigation, as a way to encourage transparency of how these are being used?
Yeah, and we had those discussions with the Community Diversity Initiative about also monitoring the data. You know, where are our success stories? How has this been used, you know, successfully? And so I think data collection and also the transparency aspect that you mentioned are important for moving forward. So yes, I think that's something that we should look into doing.
So excuse me, I have a question about how much of this, or is all of it foilable if somebody wants it? It would all be accessible for that, and how soon is that stuff available? Because I know sometimes that, depending on what it's about, can be a real problem if it gets out before you finish an investigation or before, you know, whatever happened gets to a court case or anything. I think sometimes that's problematic.
Yep, and you're asking all the questions that were asked of us in the last few days. So I have some of our folks reaching out to our surrounding neighbors who use surveillance to ask those very questions. How are you handling FOIA requests? How often are you getting them? And I don't have those answers yet, but it's a valid question.
Well, if I could chime in just for a second, they technically could be FOIA-able because there would be public records, but there are exceptions to disclosure that relate to police investigations and that type of thing. So,
well, as long as to me, as long as there's stuff that we can use as an applicable law that we follow, I don't have a problem with that. I just get nervous when, you know, I don't know what those answers would be. And as long as there is something that we would have to follow and we'd have to apply that across the board on all those, then I don't have an issue with it. Abby?
What would the timeline or process be for this? Would we be able to set those guardrails and those policies in advance of approving a contract? Or kind of what are all the things that have to happen in what order?
Yeah, I can sort of walk you through the timeline of what we're hoping here. So initially, we hope to do a request for information to kind of understand what our options may be from a technological standpoint. So that would occur over the next couple months. But one of the things that Sean and his team are obviously working on is that policy that'll govern our use and acceptable use standards regarding this surveillance footage. And so our understanding would be, and obviously Sean can expand on this more, would be we will put those safeguards into those policies or into other areas. And so you'd obviously have a chance to review, provide feedback, and ultimately craft those policies and approve them. That sound about right, Chief? You gave me a nod. So yeah, basically, we're not even at the stage of putting out a formal RFP because there's so many variables. As we explained in here, there's really a few paths we can go down from a technological standpoint. That's the purpose of the RFI, is to bring some vendors in and go, how would you approach this problem? Then we'll know what the path is, whether our budget's in the right place. And so you should expect, following that process, there will be another discussion and or some sort of contract vehicle before you.
One more, and this is going to go over there to those two guys sitting there quietly waiting. How much do you think this adds to the IT side of your world, or how does IT handle this if we say yes to doing something like this?
There could be many options, and some of the options we're looking at is having someone else take care of this and outsourcing it, maybe helping with the design, letting somebody else install it using their technology and their support staff, because it does affect both the IT department and the PPS division of Public Works.
And that was
so those are things we're still, you know, part of the RFI, and the RFP will help dictate where we go with this.
And I think that's important for us to think about. Not only, you know, wow, this sounds great and we could do this, we could use it for X, Y, and Z, but what does it really end up costing us to do that, to be able to use or get the info that we'd want out of it, the timeframes we'd like to keep, you know, all the implementation of using that. What's the reality of what it costs us? because I think that's going to be important on, especially as we start into this world, how far we go. So I'll be interested to see those when we get to that point that, you know, that's something I think we should all be concerned about.
Yeah, I'll just make note. I mean, for those of you who don't know, this is part of my business that I do. I represent a South Korean defense contractor that manufactures cameras, second largest in the world. So we do stuff like this all the time. Number one, I'll just put it out there for everybody. Facial recognition in Illinois is illegal. So that's, unless some laws change around here, nothing will change there. I do like what Alderman Iazzi said, because I do see a lot of municipalities do it in terms of geographical area. You know, hey, this is our downtown. This is where, you know, quote unquote surveillance cameras are going. We don't want them on side streets and this, that, and the other, because there have been towns, I'll tell you right now, that have gotten, as right down the road is one of them, that's gotten a little out of control in terms of, I mean, you have large cameras staring at you everywhere you go on every corner of every building. So I don't think that's what we're going for, but so I like that idea. Chief, you touched on LPR. We are going to look at an LPR solution, license plate recognition, or are we not? Is that the?
I would like to. I see value and a benefit in it, but I know that this is the first hurdle.
Yeah.
And I see that as a second hurdle. But I know that there's an integration between those two technologies right now that are used successfully in communities all around us.
Yeah.
We're constantly having cases solved for us by other agencies because we're using their LPR data. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I suggest it, you know, there's, like you said, there's many ways to skin the cat on that. So I think, you know, and just so everyone knows, I've kind of been helping behind the scenes, advising a little bit. I've sat in on a couple meetings, so kind of have an idea of what some folks have heard and, you know, some of the feedback we're getting from the security integrator community, which is who Howard was referring to in terms of who would come in here and basically be our partner for the security system. And that's really what, you know, I advised staff was, that's what we really want to look for. If we put out a blanket RFP for this, which is why I was very happy to hear Howard in terms of narrowing it down to the point where we're going to get what we really want, rather than a lot of this snake oil stuff that's out there with artificial intelligence and crazy analytics. And I mean, people can sell you all sorts of stuff. And then, you know, in terms of retention, as we were talking about, the more you retain video, the more expensive it is. You're basically renting real estate, right? Or you're purchasing a large amount of real estate to house in our facility here. So, you know, the longer you retain, the more expensive it is. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, not to forget too, that, you know, day one, obviously, we're thinking surveillance. Just know that these cameras have a ton of capability beyond just surveillance. So, you know, you think of things like heat mapping for special events, and hey, here's where the vast majority of people move in and out, congregate. We can then, you know, adjust accordingly to that, put, you know, charge more for the booths that are by all, you know, the high-end areas, or I don't know, however we want to look at that. But there's a whole boatload of stuff that you can do day two with this stuff that Howard and team, and, you know, I could even come in on weekends and kind of, you know, show these guys some of the little bells and whistles that we can do with the software paired with, you know, the new power of these cameras that we're talking about. The other thing I'll mention is there's probably going to be some of that artificial intelligence mentioned down the road. I think I talked about it already. This isn't CSI artificial intelligence. Basically what they did was show these cameras a ton of images of the same things and said, this is what a human is. This is what a human looks like wearing a yellow shirt. And, you know, so now the camera's smart. It's not out there learning on the edge and then reporting back. That's not happening. If they get smarter, it's with a firmware update, and we have to put that in place. We don't, you know, they don't just magically become smarter. So a lot of, you know, the Big Brother stuff, I'll be the first to tell you, a lot of that's real, but it's not available to the consumer market, right? We don't, the chips are basically not capable of doing what that what the military applications are doing. And actually, the company I represent is a big defense contractor. We do a bunch of that. So we have it in-house, but it's not available to us. So, and if anybody has any questions on this piece, I mean, this is what I do. I lead the security team on in my company. So if you have any questions, I kind of know cameras inside and out. Little too much, to be honest.
Anybody else? Anybody online have any questions or comments? Didn't see any little yellow hands, so.
I was just going to follow up on that. On terms of like the data analysis, I would caution that if we were to do that, we would announce it ahead of time. Hey, we're going to be conducting this analysis with the camera system, just again to ease privacy concerns for people. I think there might be just like a slight fear of, oh, you're counting where I'm going. What's this about? Even though obviously that's not the intention there. Just again, a transparency thing to make sure people don't get concerned that this is being abused in any way.
And if I may add, one of the things in our strategic plan that we've already started working on is an AI advisory committee made up of internal staff. Sean's put a really great guy from the police department on that who has extensive knowledge in, I think it was computer forensics and other things. And so one of the things we're going to be working on as part of that steering group is some best practices around the use of AI and those analytics and all those things. And so balancing business use cases with privacy and best practices. So that's something that I'm sure the committee or steering committee will take a look at is, you know, what features are available, but also how to use them in the most ethically responsible manner possible.
Okay, thank you, and we'll wait till step 2 or 3.
Yeah, so from here, we'll put out an RFI, get some more information, and if there's no real issues, you know, Steve Allen there's $100,000 in there for Northeast substation improvements. Some of that is camera, some of that is not camera. So unless there's any objection, kind of he can get started on that, and obviously anything will be brought before you for purchasing and whatnot. So that's kind of fine with everyone. Alrighty, well, thank you all. Yeah, so
private areas is completely.
If you guys have any questions, reach out to any of our IT staff, myself, Sean. And yeah, thank you guys for your feedback, and we'll keep you posted.
Thanks, guys.
No problem.
All right, thank you. Now we have item 6, others. Does anybody have any others tonight? I don't see anything online. All right, then I'll look for a motion for adjournment. Second. Malay and Sulfa, all those in favor? Aye.